Over the past few days, Donald Trump has doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down on trying to provoke as much violence as possible in cities across America because he thinks it's in his political interest to do so. So very simple opportunity was given him over the weekend to condemn Kyle Rittenhouse, who murdered multiple people in Kenosha. Here's how he responded to that.
If you could comment about the other shooting that took place in that community.
Yeah, I see.
You mentioned the National Guard going in, law enforcement, but this was a young man, 17-year-old, who's facing murder charges for having shot 2 people.
Yeah.
There's some folks who've said conservatives are holding up this young man as, having done so within his rights to sort of self-protect. And I'm wondering if you've read much about this case, if you have concerns about ordinary residents with guns in situations like this and what dangers that might present.
Well, that's under investigation right now, and they'll be reporting back to me over the next 24 hours, 48 hours maybe max, and we'll have a comment about it. But that is right now we're looking at it very, very carefully.
Yeah, he's looking at it really carefully. So in the past, this is just a part of being Donald Trump. When there's this big event like this, you don't just shoot off the hip with an impression. You wait 2 or 3 or 5 days before saying something. That's Francesca. That's what he always does in cases like this, right?
Measured response. Don't jump to conclusions. First let's get all the facts in and then we'll figure out how to spin it. It is so clear that they have not figured out how to spin it, that they are actively saying this guy is and could be our hero. And we know that Ann Coulter is saying that he should be our next president. Let's not piss Ann Coulter off, shall we? Right? We've done that before. Now we're still scared of these, grifter pundits. And what they're gonna say about us, not leaning into the white supremacy enough. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And that on the right message boards or the wrong message boards, if you will, that's a win. That's a win in the white supremacist book, right?
Yeah.
If the president doesn't condemn you, that is a win. Now, notice how the journalist was so, just the kid gloves that he asked the question with, right? It was incredible because he was like, don't you think that Americans with, sort of running around with guns, wouldn't that be dangerous? He didn't mention that Kyle Rittenhouse was in a Trump rally. He didn't mention anything about Trump's previous statements about white nationalism and good people on both sides. He didn't go into that question with any kind of accusation. Just completely laid out the red carpet to be like, sir, can you express basic empathy right now? No.
And he could not. He's waiting to find out the details. It was 4 days ago before that, 3 days before that. He's got to wait and find out. But obviously I was being sarcastic before about him waiting. He doesn't wait. No, if he wants to opine on something, he'll opine on something. Great example of it. Mehdi Hassan tweeted out a great point that I'd sort of missed. Trump tweeted out a video. It's apparently from a subway or like the stop of a subway. And it's a black individual pushing a white individual against the side of the stopped subway. Where was that? When was that? Who were any of those people? We don't know, and the president doesn't either. He just tweeted it out because it has a black person committing an act of mild violence against a white person, and that's it. That was the entire tweet. The president just tweeted out an example of a black person hurting a white person because that helps him. Not because he thinks that helps him. It objectively helps him with his base to put that out. He doesn't know anything about that. Apparently has nothing to do with BLM or any of that. It's 2 people kind of fighting briefly, but he thinks that it helps him, and so he tweeted out and he just left it up. Because explicit dog whistles, inspiring people to acts of vigilante violence against black individuals, that's the path. And look, to be fair, the reporter, you're right, was kid gloves. He didn't express a thought about Kyle in the question. But while Trump wouldn't give his thoughts on Kyle Rittenhouse there, that isn't to say that he hasn't given his thoughts. Because he also liked a tweet from Tim Pool saying Kyle Rittenhouse is a good example of why I decided to vote for Trump. Trump liked that tweet.
Jeez.
So you kind of do know a little bit about what he thinks about this domestic terrorist. And the thing is, ever since then, the whole thing was this Trump supporter decides, I'm gonna go defend property that's not mine, it's someone else's. I'm gonna illegally get a gun, cross state lines, and then throw myself in a situation where I can plausibly say I fear for my life so that I can shoot people. He wasn't the first, he's not the last, because people are doing it in cities around the country. I want you to take a look at what happened with a caravan of Trump vehicles attempting to run over civilians. Take a look at this. So that's in Portland, and a whole bunch of trucks with Trump flags and things like that tried to run over some civilians who were crossing the street. The civilians had the right of way. You could see the white sign there. And you'll notice also, if you slow that down, that none of those trucks had license plates on, which I would argue proves that they did not want to be identified after doing things that were illegal. So they try to run people down. They are macing people as they drive by. Now, those people to me look like attempted murderers using ISIS-like tactics to kill protesters they disagree with. Yes. The president had a different opinion, because when the news initially broke that a whole bunch of cars were headed to Portland to show support for him, he called them great patriots and lavished praise on them as the violence continued. Because of course he is. He wants his supporters to grab guns or cars and start brutalizing and killing people. He couldn't be more obvious about it. And that's what he's doing, because he thinks it's going to help him in the election. He thinks it's going to make people scared of Biden being president, because hey, look how the country is right now when Biden's not even president.
Because he knows the way that white supremacy and racism impact everything we do in this country, and the media especially. Because he knows that if one of those guys in a truck is hurt, and one of them in Portland may have been killed. There was the man in Portland, and he might have been a right winger. That the narrative is going to be suddenly about dangerous BLM activists. That all you have to do is provoke people who are demonstrating and who are outraged about police violence. Just provoke them with federal troops. Provoke them with your extremist thugs. And if any amount of violence comes the other way, then you've justified it completely. Then all the white fear that you've been stoking, that all of the ways that your own presidency is a complete and utter failure, it doesn't matter anymore, because you can point to the brown radicals, right? The out of control black people, and you can win an election on that. So this is the whole thing. These trucks don't have license plates. I'm sorry, how many stops have we seen that have ended in murder? Police stops that have ended in murder that started with a broken tail light. Someone not having a front license plate or a back license plate, an expired driver's license, all of these things. I mean, this is white supremacy on parade, right? And it is so painful and it is so disgusting to have to see it. But we have to be clear-eyed about exactly what he's doing. It's not that he wants, these nut jobs in the streets. It's that he knows if he can provoke activists from the other side, then he wins, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so sick that if there's violence against Trump supporters, he feels like that makes him look better. If his supporters kill people, he feels like that makes him look better. Should it be the case that in a democracy, a president thinks he does and possibly does do better the more murder there is in the streets? Is that what the case should be in a democracy?
Well, this is the thing, is that he's blaming all of that on Biden, which is the ultimate gaslight of gaslights.
Biden's not the president. Right? I know it doesn't make any sense that Biden, who is not the president, is responsible for violence in Donald Trump's America. He's been president for multiple years. And so Look, I just want to, because I've said that, he's being very explicit about wanting this stuff. So it's all he's been talking about recently, tweeting, the only way you will stop the violence in the high crime Democrat-run cities is through strength. He said that after Kyle Rittenhouse murdered multiple people. He liked that one so much, by the way, that he retweeted it later on. He was really a fan of that tweet that he sent out. He tweeted, he retweets a lot of his own tweets, it turns out. Portland is a mess, and it has been for many years. If this joke of a mayor doesn't clean it up, we will go in and do it for them. If I didn't insist on having the National Guard activate and go into Kenosha, Wisconsin, there would be no Kenosha right now. Also, there would have been great death and injury. So Kenosha wouldn't exist as a place if Trump wasn't sending in the National Guard. You'll notice, of course,
I put it on the map.
Exactly. What violence has there been in Kenosha? Jacob Blake was shot 7 times in the back. There were a couple days of protests where nobody died, and then a Trump supporter murdered some people.
Yeah.
So it kind of seems like maybe it's not Trump that's actually tamping down the violence. It seems like Trump supporters are the ones that are doing all of the violence there, of course.
And like, I know, look, corporations are people, but buildings are not people. So if they are set on fire and burn, once again, not a person. I know that's hard for we Americans to sort of get in our heads here. This presidency, though, it's a lot of like, I don't know if you guys had older brothers. John, do you have an older brother? Do you have an older brother?
I do have an older brother.
So do you remember the whole like, why are you hitting yourself thing?
Yes.
This campaign is the why are you hitting yourself of presidential campaigns. Your brother or a bully grabs your arm and just starts hitting you with your own hand. And like, why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? You're hitting me. This is your America. This is your doing. So this absolutely is the tactic once again to instigate and instigate and instigate. The BLM protesters are not instigators. Trump is the instigator.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.